It's funny how your mind can play tricks on you. For 14 years, I remembered Anna as the girl who lost her mind. The love of my life who, overnight, turned into a whirlwind of rage and tears, a beautiful storm that wrecked everything in its path before vanishing as quickly as it appeared. I spent over a decade building a narrative in my head, a story of sudden onset mental illness, of a tragedy I was powerless to prevent. It was the only way I could make sense of the gaping hole she left in my life, the only way I could sleep at night. But the truth was so much crueler than any fiction my mind could conjure. The truth was that Anna wasn't the one who was sick. The sickness was in my own home, festering in the hearts of the two people I should have been able to trust the most, my own parents. 14 years ago, I was 22 and ridiculously, stupidly in love. Her name was Anna, and she was the kind of woman you only read about in books. She had a laugh that could chase away the darkest clouds and a smile that made you feel like you were the only person in the room. We'd been together for 2 years of inside jokes, late-night drives, and whispered dreams about the future. I knew with a certainty that settled deep in my bones that this was the woman I was going to marry. So I bought a ring, got down on one knee under a sky full of stars, and asked her to be my wife. Her tearful yes was the happiest sound I had ever heard. We were planning a summer wedding, and everything felt perfect, almost too perfect. A few months before the wedding, a logistical snag meant Anna had to move out of her apartment sooner than expected. My parents, ever the picture of loving support, insisted she move in with us. "She's already family," my mother had said, pulling her into a warm embrace. At the time, I saw it as a blessing. Our house was big enough, and it would give us more time to plan the wedding. Anna would stay in my sister's old room, and we'd be a happy, bustling family counting down the days to the celebration. Looking back, I realize I willingly led the lamb to the slaughter. The first few weeks were idyllic. My mom and Anna would spend hours in the kitchen trying out new recipes and laughing like old friends. My dad, a man of few words, seemed to genuinely like her, often engaging her in conversations about her studies and her passion for art. My brother, who was a couple of years older and perpetually single, even seemed to warm up to her, cracking jokes and treating her like the sister she was about to become. I would come home from work to a house filled with warmth and light, my beautiful fiancée at the heart of it all. I felt like the luckiest man alive. And then, it all changed. It was so sudden, so jarring, that it felt like a switch had been flipped. One day, Anna was her usual sunny self. The next, she was a stranger. It started with small things. She'd be quiet at dinner, her eyes distant and clouded. Then came the anger. It would erupt out of nowhere, over the most trivial things. I'd ask her if she wanted to watch a movie, and she'd accuse me of not wanting to talk to her. I'd try to hold her hand, and she'd snatch it away as if my touch had burned her. Soon the anger escalated into something frightening. She would scream at me, her voice filled with a venom I didn't recognize. And then she started hitting me. Not hard enough to leave bruises, but the slaps and shoves were more shocking than any physical pain. It was the look in her eyes that haunted me, a mixture of pure rage and profound sorrow. I would grab her wrists, pleading with her to tell me what was wrong, what I had done to make her so unhappy. But she would just shake her head, tears streaming down her face, and refuse to say a word. Her behavior became erratic and unpredictable. She would disappear for days at a time, her phone turned off, leaving me frantic with worry. Then she'd reappear, her eyes red and swollen from crying, and collapse into my arms, sobbing apologies but offering no explanation. The cycle repeated itself, the leaving, the coming back, the anger, the tears. I was walking on eggshells, terrified of triggering another outburst. Our home, which had once been a haven, now felt like a war zone. I was completely lost. I racked my brain, going over every conversation, every interaction, trying to find the moment everything had gone so wrong. Had I said something? Done something? Was she having second thoughts about the wedding? I begged her to talk to me, to let me in, but it was like talking to a brick wall. The woman I loved was slipping away from me, and I had no idea how to save her. My parents watched this all unfold with expressions of deep concern. My mother would often pull me aside, her voice laced with pity. "She's not well, son," she'd say, shaking her head sadly. "A girl doesn't just change like that for no reason." My dad would pat me on the back, telling me to be strong, that these things happen. They were so supportive, so understanding. Or so I thought. The final straw came when I suggested she see a therapist. I did it gently, telling her that I loved her, and I couldn't bear to see her in so much pain. Her reaction was explosive. She accused me of calling her crazy, of trying to get rid of her. The fight was the worst one yet, and it ended with her packing a bag and leaving for good. A week later, a letter arrived. It was from her. In it, she wrote that she couldn't marry me, that she was sorry for everything, and that she needed me to let her go. There was no explanation, just a heartbreakingly final goodbye. I broke off the engagement. What else could I do? The woman I was supposed to marry had turned into a volatile stranger. My heart was shattered, but I truly believed she was suffering from some kind of breakdown, and that breaking up was the kindest thing I could do for both of us. My parents were there to pick up the pieces, my mother holding me as I cried, my father telling me I had made the right decision. They helped me cancel the wedding, return the gifts, and slowly, painstakingly, put my life back together. But a part of me never healed. The ghost of Anna and the unanswered questions she left behind would haunt me for the next 14 years. Life moved on as it always does. I finished my degree, got a good job, and built a comfortable, if empty, life for myself. I dated, of course. I had a few short-term relationships, but nothing ever lasted. Every time a woman would get close, I would pull away. The fear of that sudden, inexplicable change was always there, lurking in the back of my mind. How could I ever trust someone completely again when the person I had trusted with my whole heart had shattered it so completely? I couldn't fall in love. I resigned myself to a life of solitude, a life of being alone. I became the perpetual single guy at family gatherings, the one my relatives would look at with a mixture of pity and concern. And through it all, my parents were my rock. They were always there with a supportive word, a home-cooked meal, a shoulder to cry on. They never pushed me to settle down, never made me feel like a failure. They were the perfect parents, until today. I had gone over to their house for our usual Sunday dinner. The conversation was light and easy, the same comfortable back and forth we'd had 1,000 times before. We were finishing up dessert when my mother looked at me, her expression suddenly serious. "There's something I need to tell you," she said, her voice barely a whisper. My father shifted uncomfortably in his chair, his eyes fixed on his plate. A cold sense of dread washed over me. "What is it, Mom?" She took a deep breath, and the words that came out of her mouth ripped my world apart. "It's about Anna," she said. "She wasn't sick. Your father and I, we lied to her." I stared at her, my mind struggling to process what she was saying. "Lied? What are you talking about?" My mother's eyes filled with tears. "We told her you were cheating on her," she confessed, the words tumbling out in a rush. "We told her you were seeing someone else, that you didn't really love her." The room started to spin. I couldn't breathe. It was like the last 14 years of my life had been a lie, a cruel joke played at my expense. "Why?" I managed to choke out, the single word scraping my throat raw. It was my father who answered, his voice devoid of any emotion. "We didn't think you were ready for that kind of commitment," he said, as if he were explaining a business decision. "And your brother, he couldn't find anyone. It wasn't fair that you were so happy, so settled, while he was still struggling." Unfair. The word hung in the air, thick and suffocating. My happiness was unfair. My love for Anna was a liability. For 14 years, I had mourned a relationship I thought had been destroyed by mental illness. For 14 years, I had carried the guilt and the confusion, wondering what I could have done differently. And all this time, the truth was sitting right here, at this very dinner table. The anger came then, hot and blinding. I stood up so fast my chair crashed to the floor. I looked at my parents, at these two people who had raised me, who had bandaged my scraped knees and celebrated my successes, and I felt nothing but a profound and absolute sense of betrayal. "You destroyed my life," I said. my voice trembling with a rage I had never known I was capable of. You took her from me. You let me believe she was crazy. You watched me grieve for 14 years and you never said a word. My mother started to sob, mumbling about how they did it because they loved me, because they wanted to protect me. Protect me? They had sentenced me to a life of loneliness, a life haunted by the ghost of a love they had murdered. I walked out of that house and I didn't look back. I drove for hours with no destination in mind, the past and the present colliding in a maelstrom of pain and anger. Every memory of Anna was now tainted, every moment of her supposed madness now recontextualized. Her anger, her tears, her confusion, it all made sense now. She wasn't losing her mind. She was reacting to a devastating lie, a lie told to her by the people whose son she was supposed to marry. Now sitting here in the sterile silence of a motel room, the weight of those 14 lost years presses down on me. 14 years of wondering, of blaming myself, of being afraid to love again. My parents didn't just break up my engagement. They broke me. They took a piece of my soul and I'm not sure if I can ever get it back. I don't know what I'm going to do now. The thought of ever forgiving them is impossible. But what about Anna? Does she deserve to know the truth? Do I owe it to her, to the memory of what we had, to tell her that she wasn't crazy, that she was the victim of a cruel and selfish manipulation? Finding her wouldn't be about rekindling what we lost. That part of my life is gone forever, a beautiful dream that turned into a 14-year-long nightmare. But maybe, just maybe, telling her the truth could set us both free. Or maybe it would just open up old wounds that are better left scarred over. All I know is that my story, the one I've been telling myself for a decade and a half, is over. And a new, more painful one is just beginning. The story of a man who has to learn how to live with the knowledge that his own family was the architect of his greatest sorrow. And I have no idea how it's going to end.